let us analyze a common anomaly. Honestly, we all encounter them at some point. Yung mga taong, statistically speaking, are total outliers. Hindi sila yung typical demographic na may premium credentials from UP, Ateneo, or even Harvard na display prominently sa pader. They're not even necessarily the most articulate individuals. Hindi sila yung flawless magsalita na parang some pre-programmed news anchor or corporate spokesperson. But objectively, kapag kaharap mo na sila, your internal settings change. Instinctively, you find yourself sitting up straighter. Adjusting your posture, their presence triggers a subconscious behavioral shift. Every word carries specific gravity. They possess this deep cognitive weight, an aura that commands respect without them ever having to explicitly ask for it. Pero let us look at the standard data. Ano ba ang mas madalas nating makita sa corporate landscape? Enter the elite variable. Yung mga galing sa Big Four or top-tier universities. Supposedly, the elite. Pero kapag na-evaluate mo na through a high-level conversation, you find yourself asking, wait, yan na yan? Is that the whole deliverable? Their specs look like fancy legendary armor on paper, very polished. Very premium. Pero once you run a diagnostic scan on the internal database, it is surprisingly empty. Just a few dusty, outdated books. So check the contrast. Stickman A versus Stickman B. This raises a critical question. Ano ba talaga ang actual correlation between real cognitive agility and these standardized test-taking metrics? Kung hindi mo ma-differentiate, you will spend your entire life optimizing for the wrong variables. You will be perpetually obsessed with appearances while ignoring the actual substance, but once you decode the essence of real intelligence, there is a massive paradigm shift. Mag-iiba ang strategic approach mo sa mundo and your life trajectory will optimize exponentially. You stop playing the status game and start playing the value game. Ngayon, i-analyze natin ang 4 critical indicators that separate the truly wise from those who are just schooled. These are the markers of high-fidelity cognitive value. Ready to process the data? Let us dive in. Indicator number 1, emotional calculation. People with high internal substance treat their feelings as a tool, not a weapon. Hindi sila basta-basta nagpapadala sa noise ng environment. Let us observe the baseline. Usually, when we say smart, ang default assumption, not a purely logical machine. But look at Stickman C kapag may external friction. He loses frame immediately. Ano ba? Bulag ka ba? High reactive cost? Low ROI. Then we have the other extreme, the Sherlock Holmes trope. Zero emotion. Parang AI or a genius archetype from a K-drama. This is actually a low-resolution view of intelligence. True smarts isn't about the absence of emotion, but the management of it. Pero in reality, highly intelligent individuals are not devoid of data-driven emotions. In fact, mas sensitive ang sensors nila than your average person. Ang critical variance lies in the reaction speed and the calculated expression. It's not about the absence of feelings, but the governance of them sa average na tao. Upon receiving an external stimulus, like a passive-aggressive Slack message 0, 1 seconds lang, nagre-react nagad. It's almost Pavlovian. Kapag may na-detect na insult, sisimangot agad. Kapag nagalit, aatake agad. In this internal architecture, the emotion is the system admin, and they are merely users with zero permissions. And the funniest part, i-justify pa nila yan as authenticity. Ganyan lang talaga ako. Honest lang ako. In high-level circles, we don't call that honesty. We call that a lack of executive function. Pero from an analytical standpoint, that is just a severe lack of emotional regulation. You're not being real or authentic. You're just being unoptimized. Watch the outlier. Kapag nakaramdam ng galit or friction ang mga taong may deep internal power, hindi sila basta-basta sumasabog. Instead, nag-execute sila ng tactical pause. Sa micropause na iyon, they run a cost-benefit analysis. Ano ba ang ROI ko kung magagalit ako dito? Will this bridge burn or build? Mas ma-optimize ko ba ang situation if I ask calmly or perhaps utilize a strategic guilt trip for future leverage? Hindi nila suppress ang data of their anger. They just calculate when, how, and at what intensity I de-deploy ang emotion to effectively control the variables in the room. Let us run a corporate simulation. Pag nagkamali ang employee, ang average manager will let their cortisol take the wheel and sisigaw, ano bang iniisip mo? It's very low-yield behavior. The result? Nag-trigger ka lang ng defensive protocol. The employee isn't processing the actual error anymore. They're just trying to survive your verbal attack. In corporate psychology, you just caused a cognitive shutdown, pero ang true strategist, they operate on a cold but polite frequency. Instead of shouting, tatanungin ka, naintindihan mo ba ang exact downstream impact ng error na ito sa buong system natin? It's clinical, objective, and significantly more terrifying. When you lower the volume, mas tumataas ang retention ng kabilang panig sa gravity ng situation. You're bypassing their ego and hitting their logic. Look at that, the shield drops. Now, they're actually incentivized to fix the system, not just hide from you. The same formula applies to positive metrics. These individuals don't deploy praise randomly. Hindi sila cheap with compliments. They use a targeted approach, scanning the floor for hidden optimization efforts that others are too busy to notice. At ibibigay nila ang recognition at the precise moment it is needed for maximum morale boost. It's not about being nice, it's about high-level resource management. They know exactly when a small gesture yields the highest ROI on loyalty. And just like that, you've engineered an unbreakable system of trust. It's not about blind loyalty, that's for amateurs. It's about creating a predictable environment where everyone knows their ROI. Final synthesis for variable 1. Unfiltered emotion is a blunt weapon, ramming collateral damage. But calculated expression? That's a precision tool for leadership. You don't react, you calibrate. Now, let's move to indicator number 2, cross-disciplinary synthesis. Hindi lang sila basta information hoarders. They are knowledge synthesizers. They connect dots that others don't even see. Let's be real. We operate in an era of massive information surplus. Parang library na bumagsak sa ulo mo, you're drowning in data, but starving for actual wisdom. Having more tabs open doesn't make you smarter. Isang query lang sa phone mo and you access centuries of academic data. Hindi mo alam? Ask AI. Query resolved in 1 second. But the smart persona knows that access to data is not the same as intellectual leverage. Let's be real. Stockpiling facts is a deprecated metric of intelligence. Your brain isn't a hard drive. The walking encyclopedia persona, it's been rendered obsolete by the algorithm. Why memorize data when the search engine is literally in your pocket? Ang apex predator sa current ecosystem, natin, is the person who can connect the dots. You need to link data points from completely unrelated fields, from the macro trends of economics to the nuances of art history. That's the real flex. In cognitive science, we label this as synthesizing thought. It is the ability to filter through the noise and construct a new code. Actionable model of reality. For instance, imagine an isolated economics process. They only see the law of supply and demand. If sales are down, their only solution is to lower the price. Simple, but often wrong. Pero kapag na-integrate mo ang behavioral psychology, you understand the depth of human irrationality. You realize na minsan kapag sobrang mura, the market flags it as low quality. Result? Bagsak pa rin ang sales despite the perfect price point. The one who synthesizes history and technology can actually project the future of AI by mapping the disruption patterns of the 19th century Industrial Revolution. It's basically pattern recognition on a macro scale. Hindi ito na-achieve by merely brute forcing your way through 100 books a year just to look smart. If you don't connect the dots, that's just storage, not intelligence. This is the domain of individuals who, even when reading a single manual, run background queries. How do I leverage this in my marketing pipeline? O kaya, paano ko ito ipi-plug sa parenting architecture ko? In a corporate crisis, the average worker scrambles for the SOP, yung standard operating procedure, para silang nawawalang bata when the manual fails them. Pero the synthesizer will deploy humanities to solve a marketing bottleneck, or apply game theory to resolve an HR conflict. They don't see silos, they see systems. See. For these high-level thinkers, ang end goal. Nila is not a static database in their head. Instead, they construct an interactive environment where concepts constantly debate and evolve. Parang may internal board meeting sa loob ng utak nila to vet every new idea before it's accepted as truth. Conclusion for variable 2. Forget the raw storage capacity. The architecture of connections is the true metric of intelligence. It's not about how much you know, but how fast you can bridge A to Z when the market shifts. Moving on to indicator number 3. They operate on constant doubt rather than absolute certainty. Sa corporate world, the most dangerous person is the one who is 100% sure without looking at the data. Let us plot the Dunning-Kruger curve on our analytical framework. This explains the psychological gap between perception and actual proficiency. Para tong map na intellectual maturity. The data clearly states individuals with low processing power have maxed out confidence, yung nasa peak of Mount Stupid, while high-capacity processors operate in the valley of doubt. Their humility isn't just a personality trait, it's a byproduct of their complex analytical capacity. Yung mga taong may deep internal power, their situational awareness is elite. They know na yung alam nila is just a microscopic variable in a massive, chaotic system, parang looking at a single pixel when the whole 8K resolution is actually a galaxy. Ang pinaka-lethal na passive skill nila is intellectual humility. It's not about being mabait or low-key for the sake of social optics. It's a tactical tool to prevent cognitive bias from corrupting their data intake. Sa average baseline, kapag na-invalidate ang hypothesis nila, they register it as a personal system attack. Nagti-trigger agad ang defensive countermeasures because their identity is hard-coded into their opinions. It's an ego loop. Pero ang master analyst, kapag binigyan mo ng counter data, they pause the defense protocol. Hindi sila offended. Instead, they run the new variables through their logic engine to see if it makes the overall system more efficient. Nagtitiis sila sa uncomfortable thought processing of being wrong. Their self-correction mechanism tells them, Teka, statistically speaking, this opposing data point might be valid. They don't win arguments, they optimize truth. Kahit nasa gitna ng intense debate, if the opposing logic is structurally sound, they don't hesitate to execute a pivot. Sinasabi lang nila, point taken. I failed to factor that in. Good analysis. No ego. Purely data-driven optimization. See, acknowledging a flawed logic is not a system failure. In our high-stakes environment, it's the ultimate flex of analytical courage and system reliability. Mas mapagkakatiwalaan ng algorithm na kayang mag-self-correct. Based on behavioral metrics, Humans place higher trust in a leader who recalibrates upon error, compared to an entity that runs on blind stubbornness. Walang value add ang pagiging matigas ang ulo if the ship is sinking anyway. Hindi rin binary ang worldview nila. They don't just classify assets as purely good or evil. Nakikita nila ang complex multivariable nature. Engetao. This asset has high technical output but requires communication style patching. Standard corporate nuance. The goal is being able to hold two contradictory datasets in your cache without experiencing cognitive overload. Dun talaga nagmamanifest ang deep wisdom. It's the ability to navigate the gray area with surgical precision. Moving on to indicator number 4. In the hierarchy of high-level competencies, data gathering, meaning active listening, actually outranks data broadcasting or speaking. It's about intake over output, commonly. Say, surface-level observation natin, when we see someone na super articulate or someone who can dominate a board meeting with fast talk, ang automatic label natin is high intelligence. We often mistake verbal speed for cognitive depth, but try to observe carefully. Most people, while supposedly engaged in a dialogue, are actually just rendering their next counter-argument essay background cache nila. They aren't listening to understand. They are just waiting for the next gap to interrupt. Technically, that is not a data exchange. That is a reciprocal monologue. Two signals being transmitted simultaneously with zero intersection. Walang integration na nangyayari. So the system remains stagnant. Pero when you're dealing with someone who has deep internal power, they deploy contextual listening. Hindi lang acoustic sensors ang naka-activate. They are processing the metadata, the tone, the micro-expressions, and the unsaid intent. Nag-execute sila ng behavioral scan. Tinitingnan ang micro-expressions, speech velocity, and most importantly, the negative space, yung mga variables na hindi explicitly sinasabi. It's not just hearing. It's high-fidelity data extraction. They constantly run background queries. Ano ba ang core objective ng input na ito? Ano ang iniiwasan niyang metric? Basically, they are parsing unstructured data in real time to find the hidden logic. Because of this deep analysis, the speaker experiences a massive psychological relief. It validates their reality. Para bang sinasabi nila, this entity actually decoded my raw intent. Even the parts I couldn't articulate. And analytically speaking, they are immune to the pressure of conversational silence. Most people treat a pause as a dead air emergency. But for the smart ones, it's a computational window. Ang average processor panics during a pause. Pero ang true master utilizes a 3-second tactical silence to let the other side compile their thoughts. Then, they deliver a targeted, sharp question, natatama sa core NG issue. Think about it. Ang tactical pause na iyon is basically the highest form of validation you can give. It communicates a clear message. I am allocating significant processing power to your input because it actually has value. Hindi ka lang naghihintay ng turn mo. You are actively processing. Dito nagkakatalo sa corporate world. Overloading the system with a high volume of words is usually a defensive strategy for the insecure. They try to hide behind jargon. But precision questioning, that's the high-caliber weapon of the truly competent. Moving forward, let us synthesize all our findings. Nasilip na natin ang 4 na critical indicators ng totoong operational intelligence, yung mga bagay na hindi itinuturo sa top-tier universities but are essential for actual survival. Check your current parameters. Meron ba sa mga metrics na itong lumalabas sa standard school exams or even the most prestigious IQ assessments? Wala. 0. The system is calibrated for compliance. Not this level of social mastery. Traditional systems fail to measure this anomaly precisely because real-world output relies heavily on behavioral execution, not just abstract processing speed. Being smart isn't about what you can solve on paper. It's about how you navigate the human variable. At the end of the day, ang tunay na talino is not just about raw CPU speed or how fast you can solve a case study. It is about network connectivity and emotional cooling systems, the ability to process high-stakes data without your system overheating in the middle of a boardroom conflict. So, if you want to upgrade your personal operating system beyond the basic academic firmware, start executing these protocols today. Protocol N, pause. Insert a 1-second delay before reacting to a negative stimulus. Wag kang mag re-react. Agad sa passive-aggressive email NG colleague mo. Let the data settle first. Protocol dose, mix. Next time you consume data, forcibly integrate it with a completely different sector. Run cross-disciplinary queries. If you're reading about history, try to apply those lessons to modern UI, UX design. That intellectual cross-pollination is where real innovation happens. Protocol 3, doubt. Downgrade your certainty levels. Assume there is always a 20% margin of error in your core beliefs. It's not about being indecisive. It's about maintaining the intellectual humility to pivot when the market or the environment shifts. And protocol, veer, listen. In your next interaction, allocate 80% of your bandwidth to analyzing the input, and only 20% to compiling your response. Most people are just waiting for their turn to talk. The smart ones are actually mapping the other person's logic for loopholes. If you reconfigure these variables correctly, hindi ka lang basta magmumukhang matalino sa next board meeting. You will actually architect a mathematically superior trajectory for your entire life. No more guesswork. Pure optimization. Class dismissed.